During the summer, my girlfriend and I took my parents' boat up to a giant lake up north for the weekend. We decided to sleep in the boat's cabin and pretty much just live on the lake all weekend. We got there early Friday, put the boat in the water, and by Friday evening we were out on the water, eating dinner and watching the sunset. We were having a good time until our pleasant evening was interrupted. An older-looking man on a jet ski drove up to our boat and even tried getting on our boat. He looked very dirty and unkempt. I asked him what he wanted, and he told us that we should come to a party he's throwing later. He told us to meet him at the far northern dock at 10. The entire time he was talking, his eyes were glued on my girlfriend, and he has this disturbing smile on his face. I just stared at him as he drove away. Of course we weren't going to his party, especially since he seemed to be into my girlfriend. The next morning I docked the boat at the gas station to buy us some more beers. As I was leaving the store, the same man started to yell at me and get my attention. Before I could get back to my boat, he caught up to me. He asked why my girlfriend and I didn't go to his party. He also said he was throwing another one tonight and that we better not miss it. I told him that we just wanted a weekend alone and that she wasn't feeling good last night. The man's smile went away. He didn't say anything, so I walked back onto my boat and drove off. After the sun had set, I wanted to see if the man was actually throwing a party, so I drove over to the northern docks where he said the party was. Of course, there was no party. The docks were covered in tall grass and most of the planks were broken and rotted. He clearly was trying to trick us. However, it got worse. Later that night, when my girlfriend and I were asleep, I woke up to the feeling of the boat rocking. Since we were on a lake, there normally wouldn't be big enough waves to rock the boat, so I knew something was wrong. I went outside the boat's cabin. I saw a man standing on the front of my boat, looking down at my girlfriend through the window on the top of the boat. I shouted at the person to get off my boat. The person jumped off my boat into the water and got on a jet ski and drove off. I knew for a fact that it was that same creepy guy. Luckily, the next day was Sunday, so we packed the boat up early and left. To this day, I still don't know what those man's intentions were. My friend and I would go scuba diving in Lake Michigan almost every time we would go to his cottage. During one of our weekend trips, we wanted to change things up, so we decided to see what sort of fish roamed the lake during the night. So, Friday, after the sun had set, we put on our scuba gear, got our diving flashlights, and we headed into the water. It was pretty uneventful. It was clear, which was surprising, but there wasn't much to see except rocks and some minnows. After becoming bored, we decided to swim out where it was deeper to see if the larger fish were hiding out there. We were about 300 meters from shore, and there sadly wasn't any change. It was pretty deep, but there still wasn't a lot to see. I decided to swim along the floor of the lake to see if there was anything interesting. I was hoping to find a wallet someone dropped off their boat, or some expensive piece of jewelry. After looking around and finding nothing, my flipper accidentally kicked something. I thought I kicked my friend, so I turned around to signal that it was an accident. When I turned around, I didn't see my friend. Instead, I saw a bunch of garbage bags taped together. After shining my flashlight on it, I saw that it looked like a body. I grabbed it to get a better look at it, but it must have been in the water for a while, because the garbage bags pretty much disintegrated after I barely touched them. After majority of the garbage bags were destroyed, I could see what was inside. It was a decomposing body. All I saw was a pale, expressionless face with pieces of skin missing from the fish eating it. I freaked out and swam to the surface. I couldn't find my friend. Panicking. Not knowing what to do, I started screaming his name underwater and waving my flashlight around to hopefully get his attention. Eventually, he swam up to me and asked me what's wrong. I told him about the body, and he didn't believe me at first. But after he saw how truly terrified and sick I looked, he believed me. We tried finding the body, but the waves must have moved it, and it being as dark as it was, would take forever to find it again. We swam back to shore and I called the cops. They said they'd have a search sent out in the morning. The police never followed up with me, so I still don't know if they ever found it or not. To this exact day, I still think about that body. Images of its decomposing, lifeless face pop up into my mind before bed almost every night. Me, my two friends, and all our girlfriends spent one summer Sunday at a local park that had a small beach on a decently sized lake. We ate our lunch on the beach and then played some games in the sand. After a bit, we rented bikes at the park and rode through the trails. Us guys had a race and saw who could get back to the entrance first. After waiting for our girlfriends by the entrance, we finally saw them in the distance. They came riding out of the woods laughing, with concerned expressions on all three of their faces. We asked them what was so funny, and they said that when we're riding out, a man jumped out from behind the trees jokingly trying to scare the girls. They said after he came out from the woods, he just looked at them and didn't say anything. He didn't move or even acknowledge them passing by. We brushed it off as some guy trying to impress the girls and be a funny old man. Before the park closed, we rented paddleboards and had some fun on the water. Since it was later in the day, almost everyone left the park except us. As we were all messing around out in the lake, we noticed someone standing on the shore staring at us. We thought it was possibly a worker telling us to come to shore since the park may be closing. But then, our girlfriends looked at the man with a sort of terrified look. They told us that the person at the shore was the same man that jumped out from behind the trees in the woods. My two friends and I said it must just be an old guy trying to be that weird, funny guy in public, but our girlfriends were actually uncomfortable. After sitting on the paddleboards, waiting for him to go away, he eventually did. But instead of walking back on the intended paved trail, he walked straight into the woods, and it was pretty dark, so going through the woods wouldn't be efficient at all. Once the sun had set, the park had officially closed, so we had to go home. Of course, us being stupid teens, we didn't go home. We hid in the woods, and once we knew the coast was clear, we went back to the lake to start a campfire. We were drinking and listening to music, when of course, one of my friends suggested we go skinny dipping. The girls were scared to go into the water when it was dark for some reason, and their excuse was that the water was too cold. So, my friends and I were messing around in the water, showing them that it was fine. A few minutes went by, then we noticed it. In the distance, we saw someone coming towards our girlfriends. We thought it was a park ranger, but as they got closer, we realized it was the same man from the woods. After our girlfriends realized what we were looking at, they ran into the water and hid behind us. The man just stood at the shoreline looking at all of us. He had this weird smile on his face, like he was holding in a laugh or something. My friend asked him what he wanted. He didn't say anything, but he pointed at one of the girls. After a full minute of silence, he then said, "I'll be waiting." He then walked into the woods. At that point, we realized we had enough. We quickly packed up and ran to our car. The entire time we thought the man would run out of the woods at any second. Luckily, nothing happened, but I know for a fact he was watching us that entire time.